together three little of those smiley faces, you get 19 different words, depending on where you put the dots and vowels. That was the dilemma. So, in the 10th century, according to Shalinasa, who is the world authority on this, in the 10th century, there are roughly about 700 of these different Qurans. So Ibn Mujahid was given the responsibility to choose 7 of them. So who knows how he chose the 7? Anybody know? Out of the 700. What would you want him to do to choose the 7? What would you think you should do if you're talking about textual criticism? What would we do with the Bible if we're trying to stipulate which is the better or which is the verse? You'd open up the pages, right? And read the text, right? He didn't open up one page, didn't read one verse, not one line. He didn't need to. So how did he choose these 7? Anybody know? Do you know, Evan? He looked to see who had the most students. Who had the most students? How many people were memorizing their revelation or their Quran? And these were the top 7. Nafi from Medina, Ibn Kathir from Mecca, Abu Amr from Basra, Ibn Amir from Damascus, Asim from Kufa, Hamza from Kufa, Al-Kisai from Kufa. Why Kufa? Because Kufa is where all the seminaries are. Kufa is where all the seminaries are for both the Jews and the Christians, and at this time, the Muslims. Because look at their death dates. So these are the 7. Now, according to Islamic tradition, when Muhammad was receiving the revelation from Jibril, other people were coming to listen to him from other parts of the Muslim world. This is what Islamic tradition tells us. And then when they were hearing what Muhammad was saying, their Arabic was not the same as him, and they could not understand what he was saying. So Muhammad goes to Jibril and says, could you recite it to me in 7 ahruf? 7 ahruf means 7 readings, which Muhammad did. So these are the 7. This is what the Muslims will say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the 7 that were there at Muhammad's side, listening in, and they were from 7 different areas, 7 different geographical areas, and so therefore they wrote it down. So take a look at their dates, though. Nafi, 785. Ibn Kathir, 738. Abu Ahmad, 770. Ibn Amir, 736. You notice 745, 772. Did any of these men know Muhammad? Were they even living at the time of Muhammad? You see a problem here, folks? If you go to Wikipedia, you will see these names up there, but you won't see the dates. They keep the dates off. They don't want you to know the dates. I had to go and find and research every one of these dates. Notice, none of these guys knew Muhammad. None of them
century, there were about 700 different Qurans, and Ibn Majah was given the task to prune them down to 7. He simply ranked them according to the number of students that memorized them and chose the top 7 most memorized Quran versions. However, the standard Islamic narrative claimed these 7 were the different dialects in which the angel Jibril gave Muhammad the Quran to cater to the different dialects in the Arabic world. We now know better. Their dates are nowhere near Muhammad's supposed lifetime.
But here's the problem. Where is your 2 Qurans? I'm going to give them to you. This is yours, Hafs. This is yours, Warsh. You're from Cairo, you're from Kufa, right? These are the Qurans you wrote. Do you recognize them? Just say yes. Yeah. These are your work. Give them a hat. These are the guys that wrote it. But are their names on that list? Is their name on that list? It's not there, is it? And how many people now today, awesome, he's from the line of awesome. Yeah, that's right, you're getting to it. Hold on. So you are Hafs. How many people in the world today memorize his Quran? 93% of the world's population memorizes Quran. This is by far the most popular one. Has been made popular since 1924. For the last 100 years, they've gotten rid of as many as they could, and this is the one that they have chosen. How many people memorize yours? Because you are from Cairo. So all North Africans, about 3%, who are all living in North Africa, memorize your Quran. These are the 2 most popular Qurans in the world today, right? Now you're saying, aren't they the same Quran? You would think, you would hope so, right? Hold on to that question. But notice their names are on this list. So there is the dilemma. And of course, by the 12th century then, you had 1194 al-Shatibi was given responsibility to choose 2 from every one of those 7. So he came up with 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Bingo. Al-Shatibi died in 1194. Now we're in the 12th century. This is 500 years after Muhammad. They now choose another 14, 2 for each one of the students of each one of the Qira'at writers. How were they chosen? I told you just about 5 minutes ago. Popularity. Who had the most students? This guy right here, Asim Ibn al-Majud. Look on whoever, who is it? Asim, right? So he is the one from his stable. He had to choose Shuba and Hafs. How many others were in your stable? You should know this answer because you are Asim. you don't remember? 91 students are in his stable. 91 others who had their own Qurans. All in Kufa. They were all in Kufa. That's just a small town. All of them were in Kufa, and only these two were chosen because you and Shoba had more students than all the rest. It was all to do with popularity. Oh, how about yours? No, you're all alone. You're the only one. No one else in Cairo. So, Shatibi realized that Nafi, he had plenty of those who came from Mecca and Basra and Damascus and Kufa, but he had nobody who came from Cairo. Yours was chosen simply because you were in a different city and they needed to have somebody from that city. That had nothing to do with popularity, it had to do with geography. Not opening one page or reading one line. You see how idiotic this sounds. That's not how you do textual criticism, folks. Yet that's exactly what messed up the Muslims, and that's why they're ruining the day that ever happened. So, those are now 7 plus 14. How many do we have now? 21, right? Should we stop there? No, still not good enough. Because there's some other ones that are still missing. So in the 15th century, in 1429, Al-Jazari, who's considered to be the leading scholar, he wrote 80 different books just on the Qur'an. He was commissioned to choose another 3 with 6 students from those 3. So he chose these 3, Abu Ja'far, Yaqub al-Yamani, and Khalaf. Those are the Qur'ans with 2 students for each one of them. So that's another 6. So 7 plus 14 plus 3 plus 9. How many do you have now? 30 different crimes. Look at their dates. They go all the way from 736 all the way to 905. That means they go from the 8th all the way up to the 9th to the 10th century. They basically are being written over a 200-year period, none of which knew Muhammad, none of whom were in the same century Muhammad lived, none who ever heard Muhammad speak. Yet they all had Qurans from Muhammad. Isn't that interesting? 30 different Qurans. So, what would and let's just look at Hafs was the one that has been chosen as the most authoritative today, chosen in 1924. How many differences would you guess between the other 29 in Hafs? Well, our team has now been looking at it. Our team has now been unpacking it. Guess how many differences we have found? 93,000 different words. 93,000 different meanings. 93,000 different theologies, different doctrines, and different practices. In every word, you change the sentence. When you change the sentence, you change the verse. When you change the verse, in some cases, it's not just one word, entire sections were missing and changed. Now, we've just been told by Dr. Shadidat Nasser, who is the authority on this. He's working at Harvard University. He's on staff there. He's just told us we're even off. It's over 100,000 that he has found. And it's going to keep climbing as they find more. 100,000 different words between these 30. These are the ones that I have. I managed to get these. You can get these just go online. I got all mine online. You can find them. The only two you need to do are these two here. Lift those two up, if you would, you two gentlemen. Cuffs and waters. If you lift yours bows up, how many do you think the difference you are between these two right here? How many would you want? Here's that's what. 5,000 differences just between these two. 5,000 differences. That's why take this with me everywhere, these two. That's all you need to take. Don't get all the other 30.
As of the time of the presentation, they have found over 30 different Qurans with up to 100,000 variations between them. In fact, there are over 5,000 variations between the two most popular Qurans. And these differences are not just in letters and words, but also in meaning. In some cases, the difference can change the theology of the entire verse.
But Huttu now has 37. Why do I say that? Well, Hutton, my dear colleague, who is only 5'2", was asked to go down to North Africa. And she was asked to go and do some training of some of the missionaries down there. So she only speaks Turkish, doesn't speak Arabic. When she got down there to Morocco, she realized that her students had never looked at a Quran. She said, how can you be engaging with Muslims if you don't know the Quran, if you not even have a Quran? She says, let me go get one. So she went into the nearest bookstore she could find. She asked the guy behind the counter, could you give me please an Arabic Quran? And he says, well, which one do you want? She says, what do you mean? Well, I have over here Hafs, I have Warsh, I have Khalun, I have Kisai, I have Ibn Kathir, and over here I have Kalun. I said, hold on a minute. I thought there was only one Quran. Remember, this is the daughter of an imam and has been told all of her life there is only one Quran, not one word, not one letter, and even not one diacritical mark is different. How can you tell me now he just named off 6? She said, give them all to me. So she came, brought them back to London, and showed me them, and I started laughing. I thought these had all been destroyed back in 1924. You'll see why when we get there. So she says, well, Jay, how many are there? I said, there should be about 30 of them. So she started sending people to Yemen and to Morocco and to Jordan. And she said, whenever you go into the marketplace, go to where the biggest mosque is, go back behind the mosque and ask for this Quran or that the other. By 2016, she came up with 26 of these Qurans. And so we decided, I said, well, listen, we can't keep this to ourselves. Let's stick it down to Speaker's Corner. Speaker's Corner is the best place in the world, because when you go to Speaker's Corner, the whole world can see it. So we decided to take these Qurans down to Speaker's Corner. So that happened in June of 2016. Notice the man on the side. That's Muhammad Hijab. He's known all over the internet. He has a following of about 500,000, half a million. He was down at this corner that day because he knew that I was coming. He wanted to meet me. He stands about 6'8". Okay, so here he was. He was in the crowd filming me that day. He immediately goes outside, as you saw him there, and he's saying, come to me, come to me. Don't watch what they're showing you. Don't listen to what they're saying. I'll explain it for you. He will explain it for you. So these are the Qurans we showed that day. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Everyone, I could go through the names. There's so many names. These are Hatut's Quran. This is what she's been able to collect by 2016. All 26 of them. So the comeback that the Muslims will say, well, they don't change any meaning. There's no difference. Let's go through and see. I could go through 93,000. I'm not going to go through 93,000 today. Let's just use 4, okay? Just use a quick 4. These are the ones I like to use. There you have chapter 3, verse 146. And the translation is, and how many a prophet fought? You have katala on the end, because it's a dagger aleph. So how many a prophet fought, with whom were many worshippers of the Lord? On the right side, it's kutila, and how many prophets were killed? So if you look here, you see a fata, 3 ahs. Over here, it becomes a dama, a kasra, and a fata. You notice it takes the 2 fatas off, and they're the same consonants, but they change 2 vowels. So one is katala, the other one is, and if you notice here, it has a dog around it. You can't tell if that's a long A. By taking off the dog off and changing it, changed from fought versus were killed. Now, significance, did the prophets simply fight, or were they killed? Now, if I were a prophet, I would rather fight than be killed, thank you, as the former survives. Can you see that changes the meaning completely, depending on where you put the vowels? Here's another one. This is chapter 43, verse 19. Now, in the Hafs, it says ibadu. So there you have a kasr at the bottom, but you also have a beam. And then you take the dot off and put it on top of the letter, and you take the dagan aleph off, and becomes ana. So now it becomes inda instead of ibadu with the dagan aleph. So on the left, which is the Hafs, which is your Quran, it says, and they make the angels who are slaves of the beneficent females. On the right, the Inda, it says, and they make the angels who are in So here are two problems. Are the angels slaves of Allah or simply in the presence of Allah? Problem number two, is it the slaves or those in Allah's presence who will be made females? If I were an angel, I would rather prefer to be in God's presence rather than his slave. And if I were an angel as a male, I would prefer if only the slaves were made females. Thank you, not me. So you can see, coming and going, you've got all kinds of problems with that. Here's one, chapter 46, verse 15. You have Isana on the left, and then you have Al-Duris has Husna on the left, and we have enjoined on man doing good to his parents on the right, and we have enjoined on man beauty to his parents. Now, listen, I have three sons. Are men supposed to be good, or are they supposed to be beautiful to your parents? I would rather they're good than be beautiful, thank you. Good looking, because it makes more sense in that case. Now, this is probably one of the most damaging ones. This is chapter 98, verse 6, and it's talking about those of us who are in hell as the Al-Kitab. On the other, one side is Bariyati, on the other side is Bariyati. Indeed, those who disbelieve among the people of the scripture and the polytheists will be in the fire of hell, abiding eternally therein. Those are the worst of creatures. That's what Hafsid, that's what Jews say. But over here, what the one says, they would be the worst of the innocent. So here's the problem. Are we Christians the worst of creatures, or are we innocent? And what in the world, if we are innocent, what in the world are we doing in hell? So you can see that has theological importance, especially for those of us who are Christian, which all of us are. I'd like to know which it is. So there was a problem for Muhammad Hijab. He didn't know what to do. Obviously, he did not have an answer for all those people he pulled over. So back in June of 2020, he decided to ask the world's leading authority on this in the Muslim world, Dr. Gerçek Yaratan earlier. He talked about how there's no difference, not one word, not one letter. He is the one that's been at the forefront of that. That every Quran is exactly the same, not one word, not one letter. And he has said that for years and years and years and years. And that's why everybody has followed him. And that's why he's so popular. He has over 500 million followers on YouTube. So does Muhammad Hijab. But two completely different camps. Muhammad Hijab would be what I call a populist. He's on the internet. He's very good with a popular majority. He lives in London. I've engaged with him in about 4 or 5 debates. We debate all the time. And he's fat, 6'8". So when I'm on the ladder, his head's next to mine. He doesn't even need a ladder, although he does. But Yusuf Qadi is not from London. He is from Houston, though he is Pakistani, and he did his doctoral thesis on the Qira at Yale University in 1995. So he would be the world's leading authority And I was called up to say, Jay, you need to watch this interview. I think there'd be something interesting happen. So I watched it. I quickly restarted recording it. Tom put out his hand, and what he did at the very beginning, he put out his hand like this. And he said, Dr. Cotty, this is a blank sheet of paper. Which Quran is the one that's from heaven? Which is the Quran that's eternal? Which is the one that was revealed to Muhammad? Which is the one that Muhammad wrote? Before he could finish his sentence, Yasser Qadi shut him down. Says, shut up. Do not ask me this question. We don't talk about this in public. Now, I can actually show this if you want to see the interview. I've got it on the computer. But let's hold on because we are running out of time. If you want, I can give it to you. Just as God said, we do not talk about this. He said the Ahruf and the Kitab are the most difficult topics for scholars today. He went on to say, you do not tell the new converts to Islam about the Kitab. We don't even talk about it. Only with the most advanced scholars, the advanced converts, you do a deep dive. He said you can take my course, come afterwards, turn off the camera, let's not talk about it. You can do a deep dive with me, he said. He said that scholars in the last 1,000 years have not solved the problem of the Kitabs. Al-Shah al-Jazari, who was writing in the 15th century, died in 1429, wrote 80 different books on it and never came to a conclusion on it. He said the reason why we don't ask this question is because we have a respect for the Quran. And he held up the Quran like this. There are certain questions we do not ask of the Quran. We put a red line there. We don't go past that red line. Muhammad Hijab turns to, oh, is that the crisis of knowledge? The crisis of faith that you had at Yale University? No. Not crisis of faith. He says, we don't ask certain questions, but at Yale, there are no red lines. You can ask any question you want. He said it wasn't a crisis of faith, it was a crisis of knowledge that he had. Isn't that interesting, the distinction he's making? He said, you, Muhammad Hijab, you in the East, your standard narrative has holes in it. Ooh, I love that. Your standard narrative has holes in it. Which narrative? Standard Islamic narrative. S-I-N. That's why we coined the faith, because of this interview. Your standard Islamic narrative has holes in it, and that's why we're attacking the standard Islamic narrative. We're confronting it. We're actually attacking sin. Western academics, he says, have come leaps and bounds in the last 100 years, and they're looking at us, especially people like you, like the emperor with no clothes. He said, in 25 years, I've never lectured on this, nor will I ever lecture on this. accepted my class, come through deep dive. Here he's been asked a simple question. Which one of these 30 are you going to put on my hand? This subject should never be brought up in public, he said. Turn off the camera. Why did you ask this question? Don't ask me to say what should be written on the blank bosom. That wasn't good enough for Muhammad's job. He said, this should be easy for you. You're the world's leading authority. He put his hand out a second time. He said, you've got to tell me which Quran is it. This is 28 minutes later. You've got to tell me. Finally, Yasser Qadi says, they're all the Quran. He said, you mean a little bit of Hafs, a little bit, yes, a little bit of Hafs, a little bit of Wars, a little bit of some Khalud. You just mix them up and that's the Quran. I started clapping when I realized what he had just said. See, what he doesn't know is what we know. There are 93,000 differences between these two Qurans. Folks, the great thing about YouTube is this. YouTube lets you have comments at the bottom. So whenever I'm up there, I love to use YouTube because that's Speaker's Corner on the internet. And the comments are where you find out how people are reacting. And I get thousands of comments on my videos. And that's how I know where I'm weak. That's how I know where I'm strong. That's also how I know whether I'm being effective. And also I can see what countries they're from. I can see where they're watching it. And I can find all this information. But more than that, I can see how they're responding to what I'm saying. Well, I started looking at these comments on these two different sites because it was put up both on the Muhammad Hijab site and also on the Sarkadi site. And I saw comment after comment. Yes, Sarkadi, I have now left Islam. I have now left hundreds of people. I have now left Islam because of that interview. You have been telling us for years there's not one word, not one letter, that this is eternal, that it can only be eternal, and if it remains eternal, that nobody can change it. Not one man can change it. No word, not one letter. And now you're saying there's thousands of differences. I have left Islam and my blood is on your shoulders. Comment after comment, hundreds of these comments. They had to shut down the comments after 2 weeks. 2 months later, both Yasser Qadi and Muhammad Hijab completely evicted those, or what do you call it, deleted those that interview off of both their sites. They've not been up there since 2020, but I have it. I have it right here in the computer. I can give it to you. You can all have it. Hudson has it. And every June 20th, I'm going to do it while we're here. What's the date today? I've already lost them. I have to go back and do it postponedly. Every June 20th, I put up a new video. And I remind the whole world. You remember that interview? June 8th. That's it, June 8th, 2020. Remember what Yasser Qadi admitted? They're all the Quran. He put it through the Quran and threw it under the bus. And it all happened because of one little girl, only 5'2". Can you see what one woman can do? One woman who happened to find these Qurans in Yemen and in Jordan, these different Qurans in the different parts of the Muslim world. If one woman could do that much damage, that's why they're trying to kill her. They have to kill her because of what she has found.
Apparently, things got so bad that a Dawa guy from London, Muhammad Hijab, went to their top Islamic scholar, Yasser Qadi, to get a robust explanation for the variations in the Qurans. Well, that didn't go so well as Hijab expected. Yasser Qadi had no explanation and even ended up throwing the Quran under the bus. He admitted there are variations in the Qurans and all the variations are all the Quran. Then came this famous quote, "There are holes in the standard Islamic narrative." In essence, there's no preservation of the Quran as they claim. In a future video, we'll bring you the full interview between Muhammad Hijab and Yasser Qadi. Thank you for watching. Please like and share so it gets to as many